So I'm Simon Poulter. I'm director of Collusion. I work with Rachel Drury. Collusion, I think many people know, is an art and technology focused organisation based in Cambridge. But we work actually across the whole of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough local economic partnership area. So that goes all the way up to King's Lynn and goes across to Bury and Peterborough. Collusion is a practice-based organisation, so we're not just commissioning people, we're actually helping people to make new work, and we are kind of trying to work in that triangle that I was describing to Nigel earlier on, which is essentially the arts, academia and business, or creative industries, if you want to call it that. So it's fairly well-trodden territory, but for Cambridge I think it's really important to understand how this triangle works. Many of the people in the room here I think are actually in some ways relating to different parts of those three things. So I'm going to talk about Reveal, which is a project that we did last year leading up to Christmas. I think the reason for that is, in terms of the context here, is that it was a very sort of partnership-led approach to making. And we worked with multiple agencies over a period of time, which included King's Lynn and West Norfolk Borough Council. We worked with Norfolk County Council. We worked with the Business Improvement District. We worked with the LEP, the Arts Council. And we also worked with 36 artists who we commissioned. So it was quite a kind of large-scale project. But what I'm going to do is split my talk into two sections. One is I'm going to talk to you about the concept behind it, which I think will be relevant to nearly everybody in the room. And then for the larger part of my 20 minutes, I'm going to show you the film, which shows you exactly what we did. Okay, so this is a slide that I've been showing in various talks that I've done recently. So, and those of you that are keen on tweeting might like to tweet this one. So, at the moment, there's a lot of constructs around reality at the moment. So we have virtual reality, we have augmented reality, mixed reality, we have Brexit reality, we have Trump reality, we have the new normal as a form of not unreality. So active reality is a way to try and capture the value of the distinctiveness of how everything interacts, because I'm not here as an artist to say technology is wonderful, it's going to save the planet. I think technology is also dystopian and problematic. So what we need to look at is how these things interconnect. So the other way of describing active reality is placemaking. Placemaking has had a long gestation, and you won't get fired for looking at a placemaking project, particularly in a local town or a region. But placemaking's had a bit of a hammering more recently in the context of places like London, where it's now aligned with gentrification, which boils down to all the locals have to move out because they can't afford to live here anymore, and all the hipsters move in and pay twice as much for council flats. So active reality here, if we look across the concept, is thinking about live work, how we platform a town, how we create a narrative or a story for a place, how we distribute that using technologies, how we make it locative, so it's interesting to think about, using some of the more new technologies like augmented reality, how we work in terms of engagement, narrative, and being playful. So the surrounding concepts to that, of course, are very well known, because another thing is that some of the prior technologies like Sonnet Lumiere, Magic Lantern, which goes back to the Victorian period, if you don't know about that, immersive art, interactive theatre, all of these things interrelate. The thing is that augmented reality and virtual reality didn't just come along all of a sudden and change the industry or the way we think about the film industry. there is a direct relationship with Magic Lantern and augmented reality. So we're talking about, 150 years there. So I think it's really important to try and capture the value of the way we think about these things, and obviously things like socially engaged practice linked through to street theatre. So this is the homebrew kit to do your own reveal project, and most of the work that we've produced is open source. So what we mean by that is we're not trying to just capture this and monetize it. What we want to do is actually share some new thinking so that other people can do their own projects.
A new piece of story that's revealed. So we have large-scale projection, we have live performances every Sunday. We also have filmed and cut sequences, because this is part game, it's part narrative, and it's part adventure. And it's all happening across the whole of Kings Lynn in West Norfolk.
Well, in 2017, we worked with the Borough Council to develop a project that would really look at experimentation with the large-scale projectors. So it fits into Collusion's ethos by building on the work we did before, both in terms of the kind of outcomes of the R&D, but the skills and the people that we met to do something that hasn't been done before in Kings Lynn.
So thank you everyone for joining us for the start of Reveal. There's been at least 36 different creatives involved, musicians, visual artists, illustrators, and all kinds.
Half of them are from Norfolk or have a very strong connection.
The great thing about working with Kings Lynn Borough Council has been their attitude to risk. They're really keen to work with us to do something different that's going to be unique for Kings Lynn.
We've got heritage, we've got artists, we've got creators, we've got young people who are always willing to work with new technology. So to have something revealed in our town is very exciting.
I play the character of Maya, who's a young woman from Syria who's come over here as a refugee. She's a very strong, brave woman who has faced a lot in her life, and yet has to face even more when her boyfriend gets kidnapped. We are currently in, I suppose, Collusion headquarters, rehearsing some scenes this morning, which have been going well. Yeah.
We're in a fantastic shop here, which is right on Norfolk Street in the heart of Kings Lynn. We've been using this place to rehearse all the live performances,
Good people here in Kings Lynn,
but also to use it as a studio. We've been filming here with Gary Toomey, who's done all the assets for us in terms of the filming.
Where I am, I cannot say.
So all the little bits that you will see on the days when they're revealed in each of the windows as the story progresses, those have been made here in this shop.
even though you think you know what I've been through, you've no idea.
So it's been a studio, rehearsal space, as well as an opportunity for us to interact, because this is open to the public to come in and find out more about what we're doing.
We're here in Kings Lynn, come from Norwich. I've just been here for an explanation of how it's going to work, and I'm about to go and see if I can find a marker and see what happens, really.
People need to look for these. This is R for reveal. And if you hold your phone over this, there's a new opportunity to discover a piece of the story, as well as some of the codes. These are all in different places and spaces, so people have to actively move around and actually discover where these reveals are hidden. And these codes you can collect in your code cracker.
It's a good way for people to sort of get out and about and go exploring. And it's not just about the history though, is it? It's about getting people, active, isn't it? And doing something, participating and being part of something.
You're also cracking a code to help the characters working collectively to deliver parts of the story. You're following a map, you're searching and seeking.
As part of the Reveal project, we've been working in Kings Lynn with a number of schools and community groups. In fact, just about 300 young people have taken part in the project. They've been making digital light boxes, which have been coded with digital maker Katie Marshall, and she's actually produced a whole series of coding activities. So every week there's been a new way of coding the light boxes to make different animated effects.
The thing we're going to be doing today is going to be making our own digital light box. It's going to be this way. They're going to be learning to do some basic coding with the BT microbit. We're going to be covering a little bit of electronics because one of the things we're adding to the BT microbit is a neopixel strip, and they need to, rather than me just showing them and then following along, I want to understand how it's connected and why it's connected the way it is.
The light boxes were written into the story at certain points, so there was a cue for children to switch on their light boxes.
And on cue, when Margaret says we're going to show the lights, what we want to do is you lift it up and then you can hold it up so it shines high up in the sky. That's the one. We're doing the final preparation on the rehearsals, which involves various hydraulics, and without giving too much away, we've got a few surprises up our sleeve in terms of some of those reveals of how that's going to happen.
Whatever needs to be done.
But it's very exciting. It's always exciting putting something together for the first time. That's going to work.
That's so cool. I didn't think it would be that high.
No. We're excited that all of those assets are coming together. The music, the sound, the video, the filming, the text, the costumes, the actors, the performance. We're ready.
Fear not, good people of King's Lynn. I come here in peace.
I play Margaret of Antioch, who is the patron saint of King's Lynn, and she fought her way out of the belly of the dragon a few years ago. So yes, she's a tough cookie.
And the whole of the town will now see the reveal.
The conception of the piece is so much beyond just us actors and what we're doing. So there's all of this technology that's going on with finding the codes, and then there's the artists who are working on the projections.
I promise, sir, I mean no harm.
No harm, I heard what Margaret said.
And also, I suppose, the audience as well. Like, it's very interactive, and they contribute to the story as well.
And you have a look for Joe, okay? Thank you.
It's a bit like a box set of a narrative, but it happens over 4 weeks. So it's integrated with the technology, the live performances, the lights, the music, the film, as well as the interactive and game-located images that we're putting around the town.
Look to my church and see the sign to reassure you that all will be fine.
I was the 3D artist on the project, involved in making all the models for the augments you see on your phone, and also the maker of the ring that you see on the projector behind me. It was such an ambitious project, but one that obviously I was keen to work on with such talent. And I think that more projects could probably try and take a page out of this book.
Good luck, my friends. Now I'm away.
It's an opening show, and I also looked it up on the internet, and we tried to find some codes. I think it's a really nice project and nice event, especially for like kids, and yeah, I think it's really nice that the whole city gets included.
Oh, sorry, Maya. It appears Joe's gone. The message was cut short by the dragon.
He seems confused and a little bit dazed. I wouldn't listen to what he says.
The story has elements of a traditional Christmas narrative and all of the warmth and magic of that.
Can you see the dragon in the water? It's not me.
And at the same time, there's an aspect of it that is quite important, which is the story of Maya and humanising this image that we have of refugees coming over and actually getting to know someone's story and what they've been through.
I lost my brother to the seas. He died when we were fleeing Syria.
Which I think is incredibly important, particularly in Norfolk area, because there are 100 Syrian refugees who are being located here next year. So I think it's also about communities understanding and relating to each other.
For my art projection on the Custom House, I very much followed the themes in the reveal script, the story about the refugee arriving from Syria. The country's going through a very intense period. I think the images are very much about Brexit, about refugees, there's a lot of images of water. I've used images of hands because hands are often used as a kind of stop. It's been brilliant collaborating with Pete Cleary on this. He's brilliant at interactivity, and I think that combination of artists working with someone who's brilliant with technology has created something which neither of us could have created on our own.
I worked closely with Joe where he did the static imagery, and I animated it and then did a technique where you could use your mobile as a remote wand to change what's happening on the building. So I've been involved in all of the projections, helping the different artists map their ideas onto the building.
I'm making it snow in King's Lynn, so I'm drawing snowflakes, and they'll be projected on TSB and Tuesday Marketplace for the live show, and then it will end up on St. Nick's for the rest of the week. I think the way it's designed, it just looks better, bigger, whereas the white one. So it's just really inspiring to be thrown in with all these people and
we're all just sort of like mucking in and helping each other figure stuff out. I think everyone's been pushed past what they normally do, and so there's kind of a sense of anxiety and excitement around each of our individual pieces as we're all collectively trying to put this thing together that no one's ever done before.
Just been following the map and the codes around and taking the pictures and on our phones and collecting the codes as we go. And we're going to figure it out from there.
Well, it's actually quite fun because we've never really been around these parts of King's Lynn, and when it's trying to get you active, it's like, come on, let's get out and do something instead of just laze around the house all day.
Luring to Market Square so we can destroy him and the dragon when they get there. I'm impressed.
So am I.
Let's go, Joe. Margaret, fight. So strike the light, and through my power, we'll see Maya's story on Greyfriars Tower.
I wanted to tell a story about Syria, and because I'm Syrian-born, Cambridge-based artist. The story is called We Will Return, 93 Moons and Counting, and this is actually to do with 93 months since the Syrian uprising. So I'm using the idea of burnt matches, one match per month, to explore the weight of destruction on my territory.
I really love the artwork. It's very important to bring the humanity, the human side, the real story, and if that can be done through art, that's maybe a medium that can speak out to everybody.
The other letters you've all seen projected this month. C, H, I, L, D. A child. A picture of hope. The final piece needed to defeat you, dragon.
Today's episode revealed the finale really went wonderfully. We had a terrific audience.
You know, I'll be back.
And everyone got involved in the story, and it was just quite magical to see everyone's response to the surprise of Maya and Joe and the baby, and to the snow that fell, and from Karen's projection.
We had a really nice evening today. We gave out some free soup to the people. It was a cold, wet December day. The people gathered round and we shared a moment of storytelling, of art and of creative activity. And that's the power of what an art and a cultural project can really do.
What I wanted to say is that the people that worked on that project were the guy who did the 3D work had just graduated from Derby School of Art, and at the other end we had Cozy Fanny Tutti and Chris Carter doing the music. So the whole thinking behind this is to work with people at different levels, and I use a term called clever casting. I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I mean that you put people in at the right point, but you also create opportunity in the project. So the guy who did the 3D work had never actually had a gig like this before, but within the context of a framework of people who are very capable, it's possible to cast in new talent, and then you can actually bring on people through that process. So a project like Reveal is really about that idea of how you can actually bring on new people. And just one final thing. So this looks rather complicated, but essentially this is the map of how we created Reveal. So it's very similar to how a computer gaming engine would work, which is essentially that you're looking at a number of boxes which have got content in them. Reveal was developed as a web app. It's not a native app, and the reason for that is that you get much higher levels of engagement if you use web applications, because people are resistant to downloading stuff on their phones now. You may well be one of them. So here we can see at the top level we've got all of the web pages. At the secondary level we've got all of the dates for the reveals, and then the third level we've got the markers for the augmented reality. And then the level down from that, we've actually got the actual locations and when things occur. So what appears to be quite a kind of on-the-street sort of project was very, very highly organised so that all of this fitted in. But one of the things, I saw a few smiles when the Mayor of King's Lynn fired up his MG. An important factor in this project is that this is quite locked down, but you are being responsive all of the time to opportunities. So somebody said to me, the Mayor of King's Lynn has a red MG, and I said to him, well, would you bring Margaret of Antioch to King's Lynn Minster? And he said, oh, yes, I'll do that, no problem. So it's a process of being quite organised, but at the same time responsive to what is right in front of you. So thanks for listening.
Unfortunately, as Simon's not going to be able to stay for the plenary, I'm just wondering, Simon, I'm going to invite you back. If anyone's got any questions that they want to ask about the Reveal project, we could probably take those now. I think we've got quite a good amount of time for coffee, and I'm keen that if there are any questions for Simon, that we're able to take them. Anything on the floor? Oh, yes.
That was amazing. What's next?
Well, we've got our final showcase, which is going to be in Cambridge in early April. That will be 6 new commissions of UK-based artists.
Yes, please.
Across Cambridge, we see lots and lots of buildings going up and lots of empty walls. What, in your opinion, are the opportunities to actually either do something with them with the projects that you've done, but here, or get developers to commission artworks to basically make them look nicer?
That's a really good question. I think the partnership for this project that you've just seen really came from working very closely with the local authority. So I think that is possible here. But King's Lynn wanted to change the centre of gravity because essentially the Director of Leisure Services said to me, Norwich gets all the profile and all the money, can you get some for us, please? And actually that was the criterion that we worked to. And I think we did achieve that, actually. So what we had to do is think about the political framework. But I think you're absolutely right. Cambridge is Sim City kind of on acid, really, isn't it? It's mentally growing. The opportunities here to do this sort of work are very evident, and that does rely on putting the partnerships together. But I think all the people are in the room, and of course you do have great tech companies here. So I think that's all to play for, to be honest.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So recruitment is... I did speak to Akura about this when she first asked me to do this. So if you want to do diversity in a project in England at the moment, you have to put that at the top. So Marcus Roma and I actually recruited with diversity as the first thing, and that inflected on the way that the story was written, the people who got involved in making it, and so we actually went out to acting agencies to recruit people. And so I don't want to pursue a point too heavily, but the writer of the stories comes from an LGBT background in Norfolk, and as you can see, many of the artists and the actors also come from non-white English backgrounds. So that was the main criterion. But clever casting also involves spotting people and giving them a gig and trusting them and working with them. And I think that is something we've tried to do in particular. So it's approaching people and saying, would you be up for doing this? But at the same time, some of the music was produced by Matt Moss, who are a very well-known band who played with Bjork. So what we're trying to do is actually create distinctiveness in terms of the artistic content, but as I say, always thinking about diversity and giving people a gig.
I think one more if we've got one.
Hi, thank you so much. Very, very interesting. The finances of all of this, can you talk a bit about that? Because it's
Yes.
but I suppose it also takes a lot of financial support from various.
Good question again. It does. That project was a year in inception from talking to the local authorities. So the lead times to do something like this have to be considered. You can't just do this in a few months. But the project cost £85,000. And the partnership work that Rachel and I have done together is kind of quite integral to that. So the way that we work is that we approach the local authority, we ask them to put some money in. The local authority said, oh, well, the Business Improvement District, they will put some money in as well. So you know that a lot of UK towns have bids or Business Improvement Districts. We went to the Arts Council, who also funded the project for strategic reasons, because King's Lynn hasn't had the same amount of investment as other parts of East Anglia. And then we also sort of talked to local businesses and people who wanted to get involved. So the partnership work is not really evident in the presentation I've given you, but there are plenty of people nodding their heads in the room who know that that is the hard bit to make it happen. Yeah.
So thanks again to Simon. I think we should show our appreciation once more, because that was fantastic.